Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us today for Music Monday. We are so excited to have you joining us here today with a great group of guys who are going to answer some questions from our music department here. I'm going to let them introduce themselves to you this evening, and we'll tell you a little bit more about what is happening this evening. So, to my right, we'll start right here, Mr. Jonathan.
I'm Jonathan Woodby, the organist at the ANC Church.
I am Jeff Davis. I'm the assistant music director here.
I'm Chad Lambert, the musical director here, music pastor.
And tonight, we are so grateful that these guys are going to answer some questions about our virtual choir that you have been seeing regularly on Sunday. So a few weeks ago, or a couple months ago actually now, our music department had to make a major shift, and we had to ask a question when we were no longer to gather in person. How are we going to keep everybody able to engage with worship during this time where we're gathering online? And so through these brilliant minds here, they came up with a way to keep everyone engaged and keep people participating in worshiping online. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the behind the scenes of virtual choir and a little bit of the process here tonight. And we want you to feel free tonight, if you have any questions, to please put those in the comments. Let us know. We would be happy to answer those, and just whatever question you might have about how it all works, we're going to answer some of those this evening. And we're first going to talk about one big question that I'm sure that all of us have asked at some point when you watch our Sunday morning services is it live? Is it live? Pastor Chad, what do you can you tell us about Is It Live?
Is it live? Of course, it says live. If you're watching up in the corner.
Wait, so you're telling me that red button means we're actually live?
Why else would they put it if it didn't mean that we were
okay.
actually live,
Okay,
right?
got you.
And it's a huge Zoom meeting. Everybody Zooms in, calls in,
Wow.
gets ready. No, it's not live. It's there would be no way to do it live right now unless we were like all in the same room at different cameras or something like that. There's just too much latency, the time it takes for audio to travel over the internet, for us to be, even like what we're doing right now is live tonight, but by the time it reaches somebody's phone or iPad, there's about a 20-second delay. And to do everybody together, you'd have to do a 20-second delay back and forth. It doesn't work.
Okay, so tell us a little bit why the decision was made to, instead of actually just putting it out live, everybody singing, why of a pre-recorded format during this time?
Well, I mean, we wanted to do to keep a virtual choir thing going, or do a choir thing. I mean, choir is kind of our sound, and yeah, the only way to achieve that would be to do it in a way where everybody could pre-record their tracks, get them into us, and then we could assemble it and put it together. And we wanted to keep everybody participating. We didn't know, and we still don't know exactly what the future holds with everything. And we wanted to create a method by which our choir members were still a part. We're still helping to lead our congregation each week in worship.
Absolutely. And so for those of you who are joining us tonight, we've been kind of musically focusing on three areas throughout this pandemic. That's been Music Monday, it's been our Wednesday prayer, and our Sunday morning service. Music Monday has been a mixture of live and pre-recorded. Wednesday has always been live since the beginning of the pandemic, and Sunday service has been pre-recorded. And a lot of work goes into making this happen every week. It is an amazing amount of time. A lot of people may have thought during the pandemic that we are less busy, but the true answer to that is we are even more busy because it takes extra time of preparation and planning. And so, Jeff, tell us a little bit about what goes into the song selection process of preparing for a Sunday morning.
The song selection process. Well, there's two things you got to start off with. One, you have to go to the Lord. You have to pray to figure out what songs He's going to put on your heart, what songs you feel led by. And two, you have to remember what you sang the weeks before, so you don't sing the same songs, consecutive weeks or a week and a half later or something like that. Usually for the song selection, I have like this red book of songs. It's full of songs, and I'll go through the list. Usually, it's either Sundays or Mondays. I'll go ahead and get the list going for worship, and then I'll call Chad, or we'll meet up here at the church, and we'll talk about the songs, and he'll say how he feels. Or usually, sometimes there's a theme. There's like God, I love you theme, and we'll sing steadfast loved and your love is amazing, or there's some kind of theme that goes to it, or we'll do it key wise. And honestly, I don't know anything about keys, so I usually just ask him. So for the most part, how does this fit key wise? Is it good? Do you have to do this or that to get there? But sometimes it just all works together for song selection.
Awesome. And a part of our weekly Sunday morning service has been that has been such a blessing has been the specials. That's usually right before the sermon. And over the past few weeks, we've had some amazing guests that have been able to be with us. Darrell Comedy, Pam Petway, among other former choir members who've been able to do that. How does that work, getting them involved in that? Does that take extra time of planning out in the weeks ahead?
Yeah, it does. Because you have to first of all, you have to figure out the song. And then if you're going to bring in a special guest like Darrell Comedy, Pam Petway, you have to know the song you're doing and have to have the parts ready to go weeks in advance. So when it comes to that week for service, we already have the track going. We have the parts for it already. And so it's not a hassle doing it at the last minute. And sometimes for former choir members who used to sing with the choir, we'll probably do something more familiar or something that they've sang in the past that we haven't sang in years. So it's kind of more work, but usually what we do is we try to push it out. Knowing if we have an idea, we'll push it out, we'll put it on a certain day, on a certain date. So when we come into that week for worship, we already know what we're doing. We already have it planned out and things like that.
Right. That's amazing to hear the process. It's a lot of time and effort and prayer and just planning ahead to be able to make it all possible. And if any one of you know these guys, you know that they all strive for excellence in making it happen. Over and over again, we see that. A lot of extra steps are involved in making a virtual choir possible. And so tonight we wanted to give you kind of a overview of how all that happens. And for some of you who may be a part of another church or ministry, and you might have some questions about specific things, maybe applications that we're using, and feel free to ask questions about those type of things. But we're going to walk through some of the workflow of how does this all come together, because it looks great on Sunday morning. We see all these faces. We see faces that maybe we haven't seen in a long time singing, and then they're just there. I don't think so. There's a lot of work that goes into it, right? And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that happens. Actually, before we move on, Lynn has a question here about the song selection that she asked, does the song selection come from other than you two or three here? Does it come from anyone else? Or is it pretty much what you all kind of discuss and plan?
It definitely... Let me say this, song suggestions come from all over the place, and especially our own choir members, and we encourage that. But the selection itself, it comes from us. Of course, if you have something on your heart that you're saying, hey, I'm going to land the plane like this on Sunday, and that would probably be the only external influencer outside of us.
Sure, great. So let's talk a little bit about the workflow a little bit. Jeff, you've given us an overview of the planning. We're praying, we're asking, and just kind of beginning to navigate through that. But then what does it actually practically look like on a week-to-week basis? So what would be the first step in that? Any of you guys can take that question.
Well, normally we would sit down and look at what's the flow of the songs, and like Jeff was saying, is there a theme or something that's tying them together? What are the keys? And we try to always step the keys up as we're going through worship. Just kind of mentally, it can feel awkward to step down in a key. As you're moving, it feels more natural to step up. So we try to step up. But as we get that kind of stuff set, then we start looking at like kind of the structure of the song itself. What is the original structure? Who recorded it? Are there some variations out there that we want to listen to? And then, and maybe Jonathan wants to speak to this, like how we put our own spin on stuff.
Yeah, we put our spin on.
You gotta hold your mic up.
I'm sorry. We put our own spin on certain songs, and we'll try to fix it that it's workable for our group, and make it comfortable for our singers, and stuff like that. And we'll just take it from there.
All right. So then, once all this kind of gets worked through, what does the beginning of putting it all together look like on a week basis? I know because I'm here that usually it starts on Tuesday, but what happens on Tuesday for everyone who else doesn't know?
Oh, Tuesday's kind of crazy. Tuesday is we're all number one. Sometimes we record multiple Sundays on a Tuesday. So right now we're in the middle of a renovation, and before we left, before we came out of the sanctuary, knowing that it was going to be torn apart, we recorded 3 Sundays worth. We recorded that. So Tuesday started out with like having a change of clothes, so that because you're going to be recording 3 Sundays worth. You've got all these different cameras set up because we record just Jeff and the band on Tuesdays. So that's all the recording that happens on Tuesdays, Jeff and the band. So making sure that that's all set up. And then I would say running the intros to the song. That's the big thing that we try to establish. How are we coming into a song? Because we kind of craft a song a little bit as we go. I mean, Jonathan, he'll have his stuff that we've done in advance of how we're doing it. But then sometimes you just get inspired in the middle of a song, and we'll kind of give each other a look or something, or he'll throw something out and we'll kind of jump on that. But the intro is what we work out, so that we make sure we're coming into a song well, and how are we ending a song. That's kind of, and then we hit the record button, and we got 29 minutes because that's all that our camera will record. It's 29 minutes, and we start going.
And a question that we got kind of in preparation for this was, someone asked, how many takes does it take to get it all? Do you go through multiple times of having to redo it or putting it together when you actually start recording?
I know I have to do the intro multiple times.
And, I've been in there a few times when you guys record in. Jeff, why is it that we have to do the intro a few times?
I don't know. I mean, it's easy when there's people in front of you. You can engage, you can look, you're making eye contact. But when you're just staring at the camera and you're just trying to talk as if they're there, it's hard. And sometimes I just slur my words, or I'll bite my tongue. And I'm like, okay, we got to start over, guys.
We play a little bit while we're getting ready for that intro, and we kind of try to lay it down so that because on our normal Sunday morning we would have been playing while people were coming in the sanctuary, so our normal flow would have been music, and then while we're still kind of giving that underscore, he would open the service like that. So we tried to keep that going in the recording so that it had that feel, but sometimes we're not quite at the level that I guess of inspiration that you want us to be. So he gives us a little phrase, which is,
well, let's church it up a little bit.
So he'll tell us you need to church it up, and then we'll lay in a little bit, and then there comes inspiration to open the service.
So in all this recording we see on Tuesday, there's Marcus being recorded on the drums, there's Chad on the piano, Jonathan on the organ, and Jeff is leading. But if you've ever listened closely to any of our recordings, you may notice that there's an extra tenor in the background as well. That sounds very similar to Jeff. And can you tell us a little bit about that, Jeff? Why is that?
Well, usually after every Tuesday recording, once I'm done leading, I'll go in the back and I'll have the headphones on, I'll have a microphone, and I'll lay down the tenor track for worship.
So you're telling me you will re-record everything you just did? So you record every Sunday twice?
Pretty much.
Pretty much. A lot of work that goes into that. So now that we've got the pieces together after multiple takes, late Tuesdays, it's all getting put together. Now we're beginning to get everybody else involved in this, and so the parts begin to go to the choir. And Chad, explain to us a little bit about how that works for the choir once they get that process.
So we have to, obviously, because we've got multiple altos, multiple sopranos, multiple tenors, everybody has to sing the same part in that section. So Jeff, like he said, he goes back and he lays down the tenor guide for all the tenors so that when they hear the track in their ear, they have the same thing. We send that raw, what we just recorded, we send it to Emily in California, and she lays down, thank you, Emily, she lays down the soprano track for us, and then Melissa, right here in Hampton, thank you, Melissa, she lays down the alto track for us. So those ladies do a very excellent, quick turnaround. I mean, they are getting home from work or whatever's been going on in their day, they're getting that on their phone, they're getting right in, recording their part tracks, then they have to send that right back to me. So within a few hours, I've got now the soprano and the alto guide, I've got his, and I lay those back on top of what we recorded earlier in the afternoon, and we put those on like a little hidden choir site where we post for the rest of the choir, and they know to log in on Tuesday night, and there's their part tracks for them that they can listen to and hear. This is how the alto goes this week. This is how the soprano goes this week. So that's how it gets out to the choir.
Okay. And so once the choir gets their part, how do they actually go about recording it? Because we all watch on Sunday morning, and there's some different settings and different places, and some have headphones hanging in, some have AirPods. Why is that?
Well, they have to have two devices. So they have to have one device so that they can hear the part track and they can hear what we've given them. And then they have to have another device that can record what they're doing. So that's why you see headphones in their ears, because they're listening, and that's what keeps them in sync. And we do have, sync is a big issue. So we do a clap sync is how we keep it. And as we start the recording on Tuesday, we count it off. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. And they have to do that on their end when they're recording so that we can line up the audio and the video. We use the clap sync. It's like in Hollywood when they go action and they do the thing. Whatever the technical term for that thing is. I don't know what that is. I never knew why they did it until we started doing ours, and then I realized they do it in front of the cameras, and it's loud, and that way the engineers can sync the audio and the video. And basically that's what we're doing, is they're clapping high so that we can see it and hear it, and that's what allows us to line it up. So they record, and then they turn it in, they submit it, they upload it. We have like a little system in the background. They upload it right from their phone, and it comes right to us, and then we start assembling it.
And maybe just a little bit further explanation about the fact that we don't just take the video that comes from their camera. There's actually two different things that are happening in all of this, putting it together. There's a video aspect, and then there's also an audio aspect that gets all put together as we're processing it now. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in the workflow. Kind of another part for the choir is how do they know what to sing? Who do they hear in that when they're recording? And how does that work?
Well, they hear the guide. So if they're an alto, they're listening for Melissa's guide. If they're a soprano, they're listening for Emily's. If they're a tenor, they're listening for Jeff's. Now, we put out two options for them. If they need to hear that guide very strong in their ear for the whole worship set, they can do that, and they can record with that guide. Or we put out a balanced vocal recording. So we balance out the soprano, alto, and tenor. They're even. And if they feel more comfortable, some singers like to hear the other parts, and that helps them also stay on their part better. So they have an option there. They can hear the vocal guide, or they can hear a balanced vocal recording, and either way they can record on top of that.
And we talked about clap sync and getting that all together. And putting all those pieces together, but there's even more that goes into the audio part of it that you may have wondered about. Oftentimes in the past few Sundays, We have had some strings in there. We've had a bass guitar. We've had some brass horns in there. And as you may know, we don't have an orchestra. We don't have a brass section. So, Jonathan, tell us a little bit about all those extra sounds that we hear on Sunday morning. How does that happen?
First of all, Chad would give me a scratch track, just the vocals, the piano, and he has a guide lead, and the organ. So I'll listen to most of the first couple of songs is an up song, so I'll just put brass and lay the bass guitar down, and then if it's a medium ballad song, I'll put the low strings, then I'll add the high strings, and then I'll listen to it, and if there's any mistakes, I'll go correct it. And that's how it all comes together.
And for those who are not tech savvy, tell them the process that you're not actually in a room playing the trumpet. How does that work? I mean, what are you doing to actually get that sound into the mix?
I'm using a software by Native Instrument. It's called Pro Session. And I'll use those horns. It's like a combination of a horn, saxophone, trombone, a muted horn, and trumpets. So I'll use all four of those instruments and then put them together, and then I'll just add them when they need to be in the space where they need to be.
And you're doing this all through your keyboard
On the keyboard.
and
only.
choosing the sound that you want.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, how do you determine what sounds good? How do you determine what should be added in there?
First I listen to it through, and then I'll different parts I'll play it, just, because you can't play brass all the way through. You have to go in and out, and when to come in and when to drop out. And that's how it all comes together.
And for those watching tonight that may not know, you don't read music.
I don't read music. I never had lessons before. Everything is by ear.
Everything. That means
Everything.
the strings,
everything.
the brass,
the brass,
the
bass,
organ,
the organ,
the bass.
everything.
Is by ear.
Right,
That's amazing.
exactly.
That's incredible. And all of this gets put together as the week goes on. And what's the latest you've been working on those for Chad as he's been doing that up until Sunday morning?
The latest is I think the one we just did. What's the name of the song? What's the name of the song, Chad?
Do it.
What song?
The name of the song, the latest we did, the latest one.
Great and mighty is He, friend of God.
Friend of God. Friend of God. And I know that's up tempo. So I had to figure out, how everything fits and where it's supposed to go.
And you work pretty late on these, right?
Yes, sometimes it takes hours. Sometimes I don't leave here till 10:30 at night.
Yep, takes hours. Lots of time goes into this. And so in the workflow, we've got the recording, the parts go out, and then the choir records. Jonathan, in the meantime, is
Right.
laying all of this stuff down. Then the videos start to come in. And Pastor Chad, tell us a little bit about what happens next once all these videos start to come in.
Well, as they come in, we strip the audio from the video. So we separate them, and I work on the audio side of it first. And we start laying those. We use the same software that Jonathan uses to do the strings and the horns. It's called Logic. And so we have the vocal side, and we start taking everybody's vocal and just lining them up, clap sync, and blending them in. Mixing so that everything sounds balanced. And we start there, and then as Jonathan is finishing his side, then we start to stack the rest of the orchestration with the vocals to make like a final complete sound.
And the question that I keep seeing, I've seen on here a couple times and has been asked a lot, how long does it take to put it all together?
Oh, well, a long time. Let me just say this. When we first started doing this, the Bible says, like, don't build a building without measuring the cost to make sure. Yeah, I wasn't measuring the cost. I was like, yes, we need virtual choir, and it's going to be great. And I had no idea what we were getting into. But the Lord helped us, and it is definitely, I'll say this now. Our deadline for asking for videos, we ask for them to come back Friday afternoon. This past week we were delayed. This renovation process has delayed some of our recordings. So this week we extended the deadline into Saturday. So if we're not getting stuff into Saturday, sometimes into the evening on Saturday, it does take a good, I would say, 12 to 15 hours to mix it down, get the final audio, get the videos, get it all in sync, and so that we have a service for everybody on Sunday morning.
And what's the latest? How close have you come to Sunday morning that being finished?
Well, we worship together on Sundays at 10 a.m. We have to have that video uploaded to a server by about 8:30 at the latest, because server has to encode that video, and it's several gigs. It's a big video. We do everything's high quality HD. Normally, I'm pushing it up to about 6, 7 in the morning, Sunday morning.
So you work all night?
All night, yeah. Saturday night is a no sleep night. And then we get it uploaded. And of course, because you edit it in pieces, but I don't get to watch the whole service because we're pushing right up until service time on Sunday morning. So at 10 a.m., I get to watch it with everybody else, and then I take a nap.
A lot of time on Sunday morning, whether it's Jeffrey recording, Jonathan working out throughout the week, and Pastor Chad putting in several hours throughout the week. Someone asked a question that since the beginning, has the time changed from how it all gets put together to now?
Like, have we changed our deadlines, or have we gotten faster with the workflow?
I think that's the intent.
Yeah, and I will say this: we have created some templates, some stuff in Logic that when we bring a vocal in from obviously most people are recording on their phone. So you've got people who are submitting videos that, phones have different quality of microphone and stuff like that. And there are different ways that you can manipulate that audio to make it better. And some of them are good quality and some of them are not so great. So we've got templates that we've developed so that we just apply a template to somebody's vocal, and then it fixes a lot of the problems that just inherently come from recording using a phone.
And all this, the technology, obviously, it's been a learning curve, I think, and that's important for everybody to know, is we've been learning through the process. None of us are masters of any of this. It is a week-by-week learning process. Every week is changing, and just learning how to put all of this together. So as we've talked about the workflow, you kind of see from the beginning to the end of how it all gets pieced together. For those who may not know, tell us a little bit about why sometimes we watch it on Facebook, but then we might see it on Vimeo later. What's the difference there between that?
Okay, so we're on Facebook right now, live. So I'll be kind, but Facebook has certain ways that it compresses audio, and what that means is, like back in the day when you listened to a CD, that was completely uncompressed audio. So every element that was recorded on that CD originally comes out of your speakers, every frequency. Then you have what maybe an MP3 was the next evolution in there. Well, MP3 is compressed audio. So what it does is it takes out chunks of frequencies that it thinks that your ear will not miss, and gives you part of the picture, and it allows your brain to fill in the rest of the picture, basically. There is some very heavy compression on Facebook audio. And so it takes out huge chunks of what we do. All of this work, all the hours, Facebook just subtracts out big parts of what we do, and you don't get the full sound. And it will even affect the feel of a mix. When you listen to it original in its uncompressed version, it might sound full, and when you listen to it on Facebook, it might sound kind of dull. So we put it on different formats like Vimeo. Vimeo uses very little compression, and we get very good quality. And so it comes through stereo. I mean, all of the extra stuff that we put in there comes through nicely. So that's why you'll often see us live on Facebook, but then you'll see a quick post right after with a link to Vimeo, because we're encouraging people, go and listen, have a fuller experience on another platform.
Absolutely. And does YouTube do the same kind of things with as far as the audio?
YouTube is much better than Facebook as far as audio. I don't think it's quite on the level of Vimeo with compression, but they're pretty close. I mean, if you do a side-by-side comparison between Vimeo and YouTube, YouTube is close, way better than the Facebook audio, though.
Okay. So we've talked through a little bit of the workflow, and if you have any questions about that, feel free to ask that. But let's talk about some other little pieces of the music and how that all gets put together. But one of the questions I wanted to ask in this music department, who kind of influences our sound, and why is that? Anybody, feel free to take that question. Jeff, maybe.
I will say the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir definitely influences us. We do a lot of their songs. The Good Irons, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, there are definitely some other, like Mount Perrin, I would say is a major influence on us in Atlanta. Mark Blankenship is the musical director there, and just the feel of their church and the setup, the choir-centric music department that they have, that is definitely a huge, and technically, oh man, their stuff is like second to none. I mean, when you watch their stream and just the excellence that comes from that church, it is very excellent, and it's a wonderful spirit, and there's spontaneity. You can tell that they yes, they rehearse, yes, they have things, but you can tell that there are times when they just allow the spirit to flow and move, and that's part of our DNA. And so that resonates with us. There are others, Wayne Elizabeth Goodine for sure. We do so much of their music, and a lot of UPC churches, Charity Gale, that kind of sound. IBC, Indiana Bible College, is another big influencer. They do a great job of taking all kinds of different, contemporary worship songs and adding excellent choir vocals to them. They also produce multi-tracks or stems, and that helps us to learn their music or supplement our music. So those are a few of course, we're listening to major ones, Hillsong, Elevation, Bethel, and from time to time pull from them as well.
Great. And do you enjoy this process? I know it's more work, but do you enjoy it? And tell us why. What do you enjoy about it the most? Jonathan, we'll start with you.
I enjoyed the most, basically musically, and I used to play for Brooklyn Tab for many years, and it's like when I came here, it's been over a month ago, over a year and a month. And it's like I'm back in Brooklyn Tab, because it have that same feel here, the same presence of the Lord, like Brooklyn Tab has. So I really enjoy that.
That's beautiful. Jeff?
I fuss a lot about the planning and and the prep work.
Real talk here. Here we go.
But that's kind of the part I enjoy. Just usually on those Tuesdays, they're figuring out chords and whatnot, and just to be there and just listen to songs and to just hear Jonathan just do these things on the organ and these different voicings. I'm just like, woo, that just sounds good, But the prep and the planning and just being together is the funnest part for me, I'd have to say.
It's definitely, I would say, it's a labor of love. It is a lot of work, but it's definitely worth it, 100%. I mean, just to see, how the Lord can use and move and guide and just help us. I mean, it's definitely, and the thing is, I think it's a blessing for us to be facilitators for others. I know that, especially in the current climate that we're in right now, you know, my heart breaks for singers and musicians at churches where they just feel like they can't be used, you know, because their churches maybe can't gather or those kind of things. And just to create a vehicle and to be a facilitator for people to use their gifts for the Lord, it's work, but it's definitely worth it.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to begin to filter through some of the questions that we're getting here just about some of this. One of the questions we got earlier today was how do we get the backgrounds to look the way we do in the videos? What do we do about all of that?
We do have on our choir site, we do have some guidelines that we ask for, like lighting and stuff like that for the choir members. But we do a little bit of technology in there. We do some color grading. We accentuate, you know, like highlights and reduce shadows and stuff like that. We play with tint, the warmness of the video to give a more uniform look to everybody. Obviously, people are going to record in all kinds of different parts. We never want people to feel restricted, like, oh, I have to paint a wall in my house just so I can record for the choir. You don't have to do that. But, you know, if it's kind of blank and everything, we can make some adjustments back there to make it look similar across the screen.
Awesome. And how about background noise? What do we do about background noise in videos? Because we all know
Pick up everything.
So what do we do about that?
Well, we have, you know, people record. They live in different environments, and some people, you know, in our church, live close to something. I mean, we're heavily a flyover. There's going to be a highway in the background. There's going to be something like that. So we do have to do some audio editing to try to minimize some of the background rumbles and things that come through from some videos. I try to catch that as best I can. I don't always catch 100% everything. So you might hear a honk honk drive by in the middle of a song, but for the most part, we filter a lot of that out. Even if sometimes we have enough singers so that if there's something like loud that comes through and somebody's recording for just a moment, we can just cut that out, and you'll see their mouth moving, but it'll just cut that piece out until their audio is restored. And that's how we do that.
A lot of work as far as the technical side of things, and we didn't really talk about a lot of the ins and outs. And but for someone who's watching and maybe have questions about the kind of just more of technical, what are we using and kind of how are we piecing that together? What would be the just kind of in a nutshell how that happens?
In a nutshell, two pieces really. For the audio, it's Logic is what we're using, and that is a Mac-based program, Logic Pro 10. They just did an upgrade to 10.5, so that's the audio side. And then on the video side, we are using Adobe Premiere Pro to put it all together. I will say one little caveat in that we use a third-party kind of video scaler software, and I count how many videos are going to be on the screen, and then I try to square them off. A TV like these that are behind us, they display 1920 by 1080. That's the pixel image of that screen. They're 1,920 pixels wide. So if you've got 16 choir members, you take 1920 and divide it by 8, and that gives you how wide every video needs to be to get all the way across, and then I just square it. So if it's 214 wide, it's going to be 214 tall. We run them all through this utility that shrinks them down to the right size. So when I go into Premiere, all my videos are correctly sized, and then they just lay out.
And all this time, we thought you just had watched a lot of Brady Bunch.
Yes.
And thank you so much for putting that. Any other comments you all would like to add about just the music process as we begin to kind of bring this to a close? If any other questions are there, feel free to bring those in. We'll be happy to answer those. If you have questions about technical things that we didn't address that you'd like a little bit more information about, Pastor Chad would be glad to share that with you and help you out as much as you can. But any other kind of closing thoughts here about the music and just kind of how it all comes together as we're doing virtual choir through this season?
Well, I'll jump in. That way you guys can think for a second. But I think that one of the great benefits of this has been being able to, we've been free of geographic restrictions. It has been such a blessing to be able to have different people with us on Sunday morning, to have people from all over the world, really. I mean, we have a singer who sings with us from Canada and Tokyo. Obviously, Emily's in California, and singers in Tennessee. So we've got people all over the country and really the world who are able to sing. And I think that is such a wonderful message in the midst of isolationism, that there's such togetherness. And the other part of this is, it's been great, the response that we've gotten from other ministries that have reached out to us asking, how are you doing this? And it's been an open door for us to have relationships with churches and ministries that we previously didn't even know. But just to be able to talk to them and share with them, that has been an unexpected blessing through all of this.
I would say, when it comes to probably piggybacking off earlier when I said about song selection, I don't pick every song. Usually I'll pick about 3 songs, and then usually that 4th song we'll see where the Lord is moving. So we always leave room for the Lord to move, because usually there are songs that are already picked. Even I treat it like it's a Sunday morning, so there's sometimes there is a song that we're planning to sing, but there's those moments where you can just feel another song coming up, or you can feel something in the atmosphere, and I'll just look over and I'll say to Chad, hey, let's sing this song. But I will say, for the most part, you want to pick your songs out, you want to be ready, you want to be prepared, but you also want to leave room to let the Lord work.
Jonathan, any closing thoughts about music and how this all kind of comes together?
I want to say it's good to be led by the Spirit what songs should be sung, because you don't know who's out there in the audience, who's carrying a burden, or who's on the edge of committing suicide, or whatever problem they're going through. It's good to be led by the Spirit. Lord, what songs should we sing, because the right song will minister, touch the heart of that person or persons sitting out there. And we may never know, or maybe somewhere down the road we'll find out, oh, that song ministered to me. God healed me through that song. I was sick. I was on the verge of committing suicide. So we never know until maybe down the road, if God let us know, about that situation.
And I'll just add to that this has been a rewarding process that since we've been recording stuff and we put it out there, we're seeing even now the effects from stuff that we've put out several weeks ago. As people come across it on YouTube by accident. I know not long ago we connected with a church because of a song we did that was just they had been looking for. And so it's been amazing to see how it's bringing us together, how people have been able to get involved, how the choir has still been able to use their gift in this season. And so we want to just thank you for joining us tonight and kind of hearing the behind the scenes. And we want to thank all of our choir who has just worked so hard. We want to thank all of our musicians, Jonathan and Chad and Marcus on the drums, and the blessing that they have been during the season. They have just worked so hard. And all the people who have been behind the scenes, many of you may not know, but regularly on Monday, Miss Olivia Lambert is behind the scenes, putting everything together as she is right now. If I had a camera, I could show you her working, making it all happen. And it's just been a lot of people coming together to make it happen. So we want to thank everybody who's been a part of that in this season, in this process. And I'm going to let Pastor Chad close us out here this evening.
Well, we didn't want to just talk about what we do for Virtual Choir, but we did want to just take a moment tonight and present to you like a little virtual choir concert. We have generated a tremendous amount of content here over the last few weeks, and the Music Mondays previously, we've gone back and kind of looked at when we were gathering and put that kind of out. kind of stuff out. But tonight, we didn't want to just talk about it, but we wanted to share with you a little virtual choir concert over the last few weeks. So we're going to look at that right now, and we pray that it is a blessing for you. So here you go. Enjoy.
Smile, make them think you're happy. Lie and say that things are fine, and hide that empty longing that you feel. Don't ever show it, just keep your heart concealed. Why are the days so lonely? I wonder where can a heart go free? And who will dry the tears that no one sees? There must be someone to share your silent dreams. Caught like a leaf in the wind, looking for a friend. Where can you turn? Whisper the words of a prayer, and you'll find him there, arms open wide, love in his eyes. Jesus, he meets you where you are. Oh, Jesus, he heals your secret scars. All the love you're longing for is Jesus, friend of a wounded heart. Joy comes like the morning, and hope deepens as you grow, and peace beyond the reaches of your soul comes flowing through you, for love has made you whole. Once like a leaf in the wind, looking for a friend, where could you turn? You spoke the words of a prayer, and you found him there, arms open wide, love in his eyes. Jesus, he meets you where you are. Oh, Jesus, he heals your secret scars. All the love you're longing for is Jesus, what saved my life. Yes, the blood, it is my victory. What a sacrifice that saved my life. Yes, the blood, it is my victory. My victory.
When you feel your life's a battle and you're headed for defeat, oh, remember Jesus promised that we would have everything we need. So don't you dare give up on Him. Keep on holding on until you win. The Lord is in the middle of it. He's working it out for you. When you feel like Satan's busy trying to take your joy, oh, remember all the devil wants is to steal, kill, and destroy. So don't you dare throw the towel in. Keep on holding on until you win. The Lord is in the middle of it. He's working it out for you. Yes, stand and don't give up. Don't give up. And pick up the courage. Oh, stay with God. And don't give up. Don't give up.
Nations Church, I am so happy to be worshiping with you today. Listen, despite everything that's going on around us, the one thing we can be confident of is that our God reigns and He is seated on the throne. He is in control. And if you believe that, would you clap your hands and sing along with us as we lift up Jesus today? You're the Lion of Judah. Lion of Judah. You are my Lord and King. You are my Lord and King. You're the Lion of Judah. Lion of Judah. You reign over everything. Reign over everything. You're the Lion of Judah. Lion of Judah. You are the great I am. You are the great I am. You're the Lion of Judah. Lion of Judah. And you rule over all the land. Rule over all the land. And you're holy. You're mighty. You're worthy of the glory. Yes, you're holy and mighty and worthy of the glory. I lift your name on high. 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 I lift your name. Lion of Judah, you are my Lord and King. You are my Lord and King. Lion of Judah, Lion of Judah, you reign over everything. Reign over everything. Lion of Judah, Lion of Judah, you are the great I am. You are the great I am. Lion of Judah, Lion of Judah, you rule over all the land. Rule over all the land. Holy, mighty, worthy, Jesus said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. I don't know about you, but I am so glad that I have the opportunity to lift up Jesus today. Come on and help me lift him up. 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 Higher and higher. Higher and higher. Help me lift him up. 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 Higher and higher. Higher and higher.
shall wear a crown. I shall wear a crown. When it's all over, when it's all over, I shall wear a crown. I shall wear a crown. When it's all over, when it's all over, I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. Soon as I get home, soon as I get home, I shall see his face. I shall see his face. When it's all over, when it's over, I shall see his face. See his face. When it's all over, when it's all over, I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. I'm going to put on my robe, tell the story how I made it over. Soon